So the MrBeast puff piece, interview with Oompaville has been out for a few days. We've had some varying mixed opinions. I'm kidding. Almost everybody absolutely hated that interview. And I wanted to showcase a little bit of activity that followed after the interview. Things like the Reddit community that MrBeast was heavily criticizing, r/YouTube drama, straight up clapping back at this man with receipts, seemingly completely debunking this argument that the mods of the community were deleting posts that were defending MrBeast. Additionally, it was also discovered that a couple years ago, MrBeast and the startup Creative Juice invested in Oompaville for his candy company. Now, I don't think that impacted the way that he treated Jimmy on the interview, but we're gonna get more into it. And to tie it all up, we're also gonna be taking a look at some of the other criticisms that have been made against the interview. Last thing before we get started, if you're new here, consider subscribing. I post like this at least 3 times a week, if not more. Give this video a thumbs up if you feel it is worth your time. And regardless of if you do either of those things, I just appreciate you being here to watch, so thank you. Also, look, I have a neon sign that says arcade. Now to kick this off, let's take a look at that Google Doc that Oompaville was sent from Jimmy in regard to the evidence that they were being asked to bring forward. So it included some of that earlier stuff, but we want to take a look at Booyah right here, this Reddit thread stuff. So the question asked, do you have any examples of r/YouTube drama censoring and deleting positive posts about MrBeast and negative posts about his detractors? Here are tweets from people who are not me making these claims. And so it's people being like, okay, drama alert, Nicholas Dorio, crazy. Here's some random examples my team found. I wouldn't focus on any particular ones, but more the volume. And keep in mind, this is half of the document is just screenshots from these Reddit posts that they were saying were deleted that were defending him. Now this video comes out, this document comes out, you know, throwing all these allegations towards the Reddit community. And the Reddit community, naturally, hits a clapback. This comes from the chief janitor, I542. About MrBeast. For those of you who are new here, welcome. I started this community about forever ago, the creator of this community. For my own sanity, I am not an active moderator. My current role is something along the lines of overseer. I keep an eye out for shit hitting the fan and step in when truly necessary. In this way, I can make objective calls and stay out of the mess. This is one of those times. First, I will make my starting point clear. I do not follow MrBeast nor the content he produces. I have no strong opinions about it. I am sure it's good content, but I personally do not watch it. I have seen recent allegations against him, and while some are more convincing than others, I believe in innocent until proven guilty. As far as I'm aware, MrBeast is a free man and, like anyone else, has the benefit of the doubt. Now to the topic at hand. MrBeast alleges the YouTube drama mods remove posts that are in favor of him, providing about 2 pages of screenshots. I have read this document and most of the posts in question. The unfortunate thing about deleted posts is that they are, well, deleted. And if you are not a moderator, you can only assume what the author meant based on the title. For example, the allegations that seemingly have no evidence post is not a valiant defense of MrBeast's integrity. The OP is literally asking if MrBeast is a cannibal. Now this may just be my opinion, but this is an absurd allegation that does not deserve to see the light of day. But I am happy to oblige with MrBeast's request to stop censoring posts he deems are in favor of him. We have undeleted the post and archived it so you can enjoy it in all its glory, free from the censorship of the vile, biased mods. And here we can see that Reddit post. I have seen so many misleading videos on TikTok about MrBeast apparently being a cannibal, but I can't find anything about it, and no YouTubers also reported about it. Do y'all know anything? Comment/post removed for misinformation. You know what, honestly, I think it's really good to make sure that we're seeing posts like this, you know, of Jimmy maybe being a cannibal too. It is, you know, really screwed up that the Reddit mods looked at that without even confirming if it was true or not, and hid it away. What if Jimmy wants to come out as a cannibal? What if that was the goal throughout all of this? What if it was all a master plan to avoid any accountability for any of the horrible things that, you know, he still hasn't talked about, and instead he just doubled down and ate a motherfucker? On a serious note, yes, he wouldn't have been able to actually see what was written in the actual post, but it's really funny that he chose to screenshot this one and it's someone thinking that maybe he's a cannibal. Continuing on. Several other posts have been deleted because the moderators believe they should be posted in a mega thread. A mega thread is a time-honored Reddit tradition that puts all the content related to one topic in one place so that it does not overwhelm the entire subreddit. This has occurred on many, many occasions and will not stop. Both posts that are against him and for him get told to go to the mega thread. In fact, the post that was pinned before this one was about Ethan Klein, proving that the moderators very much do the same regardless of the topic in question. And posts critical of MrBeast's accusers like Dogpack have been allowed to stay up just the same as posts linking to those allegations in the first place. On this point specifically, you can even see the responses like, this drama has been posted within the subreddit before, or this one here, keep all discussions of this topic within the related mega thread. Use the search bar or check pin post to find the mega thread. Again, another mega thread one. And a lot of other ones saying, this drama has been posted within the subreddit before. Or another really popular one, this is not drama. This drama has been posted within the subreddit before. This drama has been posted within the subreddit before. So again, it comes across a lot. And if you just read the responses by the YouTube drama team, half of these should not have been included because it takes absolutely no critical thinking to just read what they're saying and go, oh, you're just not abiding by the rules of a community that is centered around, posting a bunch of information about new drama. Crazy that they would delete copies of that or put them in their own categories when the drama is big. Like, I don't know, YouTube's golden boy getting accused of just about literally everything. But back to this. A significant number of screenshots implies we are covering for another YouTuber, Rosanna Pansino. I have no idea how she is related to this entire drama. In general, the moderators try to edge on the side of caution when dealing with topics like death. I am very proud of the team for having the maturity and the wisdom to understand that death is a sensitive topic that should not be abused for clicks and views, and I do not see anything wrong with this approach. Even if we all catch shit for it, I would rather be safe than sorry. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Other topics have been flagged as duplicates and removed because the same video has already been posted and discussed. This is another policy that dates back to online forums before half the subreddit was even born and has been a part of Reddit's own guidelines since forever. These policies were certainly not designed to shit on MrBeast in particular, but to make sure everyone can handle large-scale discussion and still find enjoyable content for themselves. This system is not perfect because we, humans, are not perfect. Something that even MrBeast himself agrees to. In the sea of deleted posts, and as MrBeast surely knows given the size of his audience, a surprising amount of people are assholes online, you will inevitably find one example where a genuine mistake has been made, but the mods try their best, and given the above examples, I have found no reason to believe they are doing a bad job overall. Oversights can happen, and the mods usually try to remedy them when pointed out. But it is also important to note that all moderators are unpaid volunteers who drop in and out as they have time, and oftentimes, especially in large events like this one, there's too much work to handle. So I'm very grateful to the moderators holding the fort and doing unpaid work for the benefit of a public corporation with a $25 billion market cap. And this is like probably my favorite part in this. If you truly believe that there's an issue of moderator bias, that would be against the Reddit moderator code of conduct. MrBeast is free to vent his frustrations to the Reddit administrator team, who will almost certainly do anything to make one of the internet's most popular figures happy. In the meantime, I ask him not to paint a giant target on the backs of ordinary people who, unlike him, do not have the resources, emotional or financial, to defend themselves against a mob of internet trolls. Sometimes 10,000 people will upvote a post that is giving shit to MrBreast. That is such an inconsequential amount of people in comparison to even just the audience that MrBeast has, that it's insane that he cares so much about this thread. And on top of that, to make it seem like a terrible place that has been mistreating him when, as they already said, it's against the code of conduct, and again, pretty much all of the evidence that MrBeast shows up, I can't speak for every single one of them, is very easily reasoned out with, it's not going against the code of conduct or just the rules and stipulations they have in place to keep the place organized, as well as making the community easy to traverse and understand, so you can actually get what you came for. And now to finish it out, allow me briefly at the end to put this into context. Here we have the world's premier online entertainer, a man worth $500 million with an audience of at least 300 million people, picking a fight with a couple of Reddit moderators of a community that, at its absolute peak, barely reaches the amount of views in a month that he gets in 10 minutes. MrBeast has a net worth of a small city, and he decided to start beef with a genuinely unimportant corner of the internet and a handful of people who are trying to bring some semblance of order into an online space. In some cases, the very people he portrays as biased are literally defending him from unbased allegations. MrBeast, Jimmy, if I may, from one man to another. It is, at least here in the Netherlands, a wonderful Saturday morning. You are rich and famous. Go relax and spend your money. And if, with your immense wealth and influence, you're already so bored that you want to pick fights, then please go pick on someone closer to your own size. I hear CoffeeZilla has some questions.
Get it! Fuck! Debunked.
I'll be throwing a link to this post in the description below because as you can see here, they've also included all of the trackdown posts related to the screenshots provided by Jimmy. He can't restore all of them as some were deleted by the poster, but he has a majority of them. So if you want to go through and read those at your own discretion, feel free. But now onto Oompaville and his interactions with this community. So we all know that Oompaville is not known as like some crazy hard-hitting investigative journalist of any kind of sort. He makes interesting videos about interesting things and he also interviews people. He's not a great person to interview when there are points that need to be, pushed further. He agrees with this point. This is not news to him. Now, because of the flack that, this interview was receiving, a lot of people were chatting about it on r/YouTube drama. And Oompaville actually showed up and started, the best word for how he was acting was a bit goofy. Here's the first one. After helping put out a document with allegations against the moderators of this sub, Oompaville came to the sub to be silly. Instead of addressing any real criticisms or not being here at all, he chose to act like this. The document initially resulted in a ton of harassment of the sub. And so here's Oompa. So someone was saying, my biggest problem with the interview is that Oompa doesn't actually push back on any of his answers and simply agrees with every response. I really question why Beast was willing to do this but completely ignore CoffeeZilla's questions in regards to his crypto history. Oompa responded, he answered Coffee's questions that he wouldn't answer the day before at the end of my video. Oompa says flat out right here that Jimmy declined to answer questions, or said he wouldn't answer questions that he ended up getting asked the next day, which based off of his responses, you can go check out my video about it, it makes sense that he needed another day. And then someone replies to what he had said with, that's what you respond with? You're not gonna address the other points of criticism? And then he responded, I was originally going to just respond with this, and it was just an old man AI filter on him. And then there were some people messaging saying, I'm genuinely curious, what do you think this accomplishes? Do you think trying to be smarmy is going to make your extremely softball interview somehow better? To change people's opinions on you or your work? And poor baby was too scared to actually push back against the big and strong MrBeast. So no questions about the CEO being fired and his assistant, just to be brought right back. I also think on some of those points, like Jimmy said, maybe legally they cannot actually talk about stuff where like someone was getting fired. I know that there are some policies, laws in place for things like that, but I think the point still stands that nothing was pushed on. Or at the very least, we didn't even hear Jimmy say, I can't talk about it legally. Because the question, realistically, either wasn't asked or was, Jimmy said that, and they're like, we're not gonna include it. And then someone else replies, adding on, the Delaware stuff is one of the main points of criticism. He says he didn't know, but clearly by Jake Weddle's comments about why he's called Delaware, people at the company knew. So did MrBeast just not know for the entire time while everyone else did? Or the shit with Ava in the chat? Or the shit with, well, people can quit whenever they want, being a point. Jake Weddle went super into detail for why himself and others being offered this wouldn't back away. Very good points, and Oompa just responds with that same photo of the old man. And also putting below it, I'm really sorry. Now, Oompaville actually saw this post and then actually made like a detailed response. In all honesty, there just isn't much to respond to from me. Not a journalist, wasn't prepared, I did a poor job, etc., just like I did in the Dogpack vids. I will say that I'm very grateful that so many people have actual expectations for me in regard to this stuff. Largely, I find my content to be embarrassing, so seeing this happen is surreal. It's remarkable I've made it this far. All the criticism is completely valid. I lurk here occasionally and I'm always interested in feedback, etc. I genuinely am not trolling. I also really enjoy sending photos of myself heavily aged to strangers. Not sorry for the video, it's definitely something I'd make, but I do apologize if it didn't meet your expectations. Not going to say I'm going to do better or anything, my priorities don't lie with being awesome and smart on the internet. That being said, I do appreciate how much y'all care. So once again, I'm not really in a good place to respond to criticism, you're all correct, I accept, admit, and encourage it. It's aging me, and he sends the post again. And so this gets followed up with, so I just saw this comment and the key issue I have isn't necessarily with your video itself, it's personally what I expected, but with your lack of contacting the mods of this sub before having a document with 13 out of the 26 pages be about their moderating. That document ended up causing harassment, which I don't know if you noticed the night you decided to comment, but the harassment often indirectly or directly cited the document. You helped put out claims against private figures that, for all intents and purposes, do not seem true or well-founded and could have been cleared up with a message or two, which is exceedingly easy to do, which you should know because you lurk. Also, your behavior isn't about being awesome or smart, it's just about trying to read the room. And it's hard to believe you're not trying to troll when you're posting pictures of yourself heavily aged in discussion about how you've mishandled things. That's completely fair. Jimmy made the doc, I didn't put anything in there, I just gave prompts and he added images, etc., etc. I should have checked. You are correct. I apologize if it caused any undue stress. Also, for the trolling comment, I meant I wasn't trolling with that post above. The other I was. I thought it was funny. One of the other mods here was thinking it was wise to at least disavow the documents portion on the sub in the description of the video because it had caused a lot of stress onto them and the mod team and spread misinformation on how we've been handling it. They go into detail talking about the cannibal post, but then additionally that there were other posts that were negative on Jimmy that Jimmy thought would have been positive of him, a post that was taken down and put back up onto the sub as shown within the screenshot, and others were super low effort posts, reposts, redundants, or should have just been in the mega thread. Oompa responded the purpose was to get him to respond with as forthcoming of an attitude as possible. I didn't want to get in the way. That was the philosophy, even with the doc. Now, honestly, I think he was trolling. I don't think he really cared that much, and truly, I just don't know if it's in Oompa's wheelhouse to care about the Reddit. I'm a little bit disappointed. I don't think he has to go out of his way to, do the things that they're asking him. But I do think it would be important to include, hey, I didn't know about any of that. I just gave him the doc and he made those decisions to do those things. I think Oompa just reacted really quickly to getting the interview set up. For sure made a few mistakes, was obviously not the person to have done this interview, but when you're given an opportunity like that, like if I was given a day's notice to interview Jimmy in regard to this stuff, I wouldn't be prepared. It wouldn't be a good interview. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Oompa actually just had an interview with, I think it's Passion Fruit, and he talks about how this interview came to be. This comes from YouTuber Oompaville doesn't know how he got the MrBreast interview. And this is from Oompa. He says, first, Donaldson is like, I'll come out there, but plans might change. And then he calls me, they get on a plane, and then he's in my living room a couple hours later. It was very weird, very odd, in a very short time frame. And then the author of this article also points out, it should be noted that Phelps also has a history with Donaldson. In 2021, Donaldson partnered with the creator economy startup Creative Juice to invest 250 grand in Phelps' candy business for a percentage of his YouTube channel. Phelps responded on Reddit that his contract ended with them in January of 2024, and he had never spoken to Donaldson until after the dog pack videos, and that his relationship with Creative Juices had nothing to do with Donaldson. Honestly, the explanation that he gives makes sense, and that's why I don't really want to entertain the idea that he was like bought by Jimmy. I've watched Oompa's content for a while. He's just someone that I enjoy watching, and the way that he treated Jimmy during the interview just falls perfectly in line with his personality and the way that he behaves online. So again, I don't think this has to do with this investment that had happened. I believe him that it had ended in January. I know that's just he said, she said, but take that with a grain of salt. Make your own decisions, but that's just kind of me based off of my experience with him. But moving on to the interview. Phelps said there were no limitations or questions that couldn't be asked before the interview. And if I requested evidence or if like my team while editing, we had a question on something, we sent him those questions and then he responded. In addition, Phelps said he spent 2 hours preparing for this interview with MrBreast, which included writing questions and setting up cameras in his home. Earlier that day, Phelps had launched his video game studio and demo for his first title, which is something he admits he cared a lot more about than this interview. I was very concerned with my video game. That's my #1 priority, Phelps said. I spent more time in Unity that day than I did writing questions for a MrBreast interview, which is kind of embarrassing. So yeah, I mean, it's giving more of an explanation as to why this interview kind of sucked. And honestly, if I only had 2 hours, I would miss some pretty glaring issues myself. I think it's a great point that like Oompa just really doesn't care about this drama in particular. It's interesting. He'll have Dogpack on it for an interview. He'll have Jimmy on for an interview. It's interesting and cool, but it's not like he needs to get to the bottom of the truth at its core. The thing that is more important to him is the game that he had just launched, which he was, working on in Unity and messing around with. I think to some extent, it makes sense that Jimmy chose Oompa, and #2, that Oompa accepted it. Who wouldn't accept to do that interview, regardless of if you're capable or not? And on top of that, I think to some extent, Jimmy understands how Oompa works or just knows that he clearly wasn't as invested, but just was a big YouTuber. And in that case, it ended up working out in his favor. I mean, if you want to spin it that way, he got interviewed, wasn't asked tough questions. I think most of the internet recognizes that that interview sucked. So I don't really know how much, positive light he actually ended up getting out of it. Although it is significantly more than still saying nothing. Last thing that I wanted to show you is a tweet that was posted in regard to Jimmy's response about how there was like little to no issues with the Beast games and how that what had come out was completely blowing it out of proportion. So the same author made a tweet and he was replying to MrBreast saying, we have tons of behind the scenes dropping when the show does to show how blown out of proportion these claims were. Just can't release it now because it would spoil the games. Steven replies to this, the claims of mistreatment and abuse on the sets of MrBreast games were not blown out of proportion. The crew members and contestants I spoke with were hurt, underfed, and mistreated by a production that only focused on getting the shot. Underfed means insufficiently fed or nourished. We all learned today. None of our production managers or production coordinators were union, and their complete lack of experience working in a show of that vastness showed painfully every day, one former crew member from Toronto told me yesterday. A highly edited behind-the-scenes montage isn't going to convince me otherwise. There's a lot left to report on before the premiere. Someone responded saying it sounds like typical first season on reality show issues, and Steven responded back, did the real world have a tower fall on anyone? And they said that they could confirm that at the end of filming on September 11th, a 6-foot by 6-foot piece of the tower at the Beast Games fell on a crew member. Emergency services were called and they were brought to the hospital where they still remain. So again, it seems like there is still a lot that Jimmy still needs to respond to. People are not satisfied with that interview because it sucked. And I think it's very interesting to have the Reddit in its entirety actually end up making a response, including the creator of the Reddit, and they came with receipts. One of the mightiest clapbacks that I've seen Reddit give any, outside force, and I think that they handled it super well. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments down below. Join the Discord if you want to play games or sometime and hang out. And that's it. That's all. I'll see you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.